in this time where the structure is a little bit different and some of those things are changing. So we really just see our role as convening the experts, which is you all, to have that conversation, and we'd love to just create a space for you to dialogue about this. So like Marcel said, we hope, you know, the chat is one way that we can talk to each other, but we hope that some of you will share your cameras, share your audio, and actually share some of your ideas, what's working, what you're trying at your institutions. So we're just here to really be the convener. We've pulled a few ideas from the Program of Excellence applications to see what some of you have been doing, and we've got those in our back pockets if we see opportunities to add those in, but you all may be doing those things anyway and can share those. So with that, Marcel, do we want to just go ahead and open it up, starting with first year? Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, go ahead, starting with first year. I know it might be kind of bumpy, but I was thinking maybe people could just unmute themselves, jump in if they have something to say, and we can kind of sort out those overlaps when they happen. And then if that just feels a little chaotic, we can switch to using maybe the group chat, and people can just type out like call on me, and we can sort of organize from there. Does that sound good?
Yeah, so what are you all doing or trying to support the needs of your first year students coming in? And I'm thinking organization fairs, you know, orientation stuff, helping them see opportunities to get involved in clubs and groups. And actually, if I can put you on the spot, Judy Gary, I think you might have another meeting to get to. Would you want to kick us off and share what you all are thinking about doing?
Sure, thank you. And I'm also really curious about how other people are handling the whole issue of attracting students and getting their memberships, sort of the recruitment of students. So we just learned today that the school has organized an organizational fair. The way that they're setting it up is asking each interest group to set up their own Zoom room and have people visit during a specific time frame. Our group is trying to decide specifically what we'd like to have in the room. They're asking people to have some kind of display. I'm going to move over here because there's a lawnmower outside, sorry. Some kind of display, student representatives in the room, but we're also thinking that what we're going to do is have a series of raffles so that students get prizes for membership sign up. So a variety of different things at different levels. So some of the money that we would have used for some kind of treat or attraction to our booth will instead use for raffles and have things that students can access, you know, individually. So that's something that we're thinking about. The Academy, I feel like I've been trying to work with people on membership services to make a mechanism that would be easier for us to be able to get people signed up and capture that information locally, which is pretty vital to our group before we turn it over to the Academy because of the privacy policies of the Academy not being able to in turn share that membership information back with us. So we need to capture it locally first. So I've been working with the membership people at the AAFP to make that a better process. But I'm really interested in what other people are going to do. We'll also have a departmental open house where we'll give tickets. We usually have something in person where we invite people to drop in, meet our faculty, have some refreshments, pick up some kind of promotional item. This year we'll do it by having people sign up to come by when we know that we can staff the floor and offer that sort of welcome gift. So those are some of the initial things. The students are already planning a virtual panel as well.
Thanks, Judy. Any other ideas? Anything else in the works for anyone?
I can share for a second. My name is Alex. I'm now a second-year student at Oregon Health and Science University. The FMIG at our school is one of the most active interest groups, and we've done our best to keep that up during the pandemic. But we're also having some concerns about how to recruit new members. Similar to what Judy was saying, we have a virtual fair where we have a time where we'll be able to present our interest group to students. And we transition our leadership at the end of the year. So it's important for us to find some new members so that we have a new leadership team in place before we go off to do our dedicated STEP studying time. In addition to the virtual fair, every year we would host an event called Meet the Docs, where we have a panel of 6 to 8 family med doctors with differing subspecialties represented. Normally we would have a catered dinner. Obviously that's not a choice for us this time. So we're going to have the virtual event. And we're choosing to send out a survey to have people vote on how we can donate the money we would have normally spent on the catering. It's maybe not as exciting for some folks as a raffle, but we thought it was a chance to also gauge interest in the different sort of social justice causes that new students might have. We're also continuing to host virtual events 2 or 3 times a month. We have a journal club, we have lunchtime talks, and we're able to advertise those in school email listservs, but also on social media. And that's been a way to attract a lot of people to our interest group as well. We have speakers that are family medicine docs, basic science people, even older students who are doing interesting research. So we try to represent the diversity of the field for people to see what we're all about.
I've heard a few ideas about virtual panels of physicians. I'm wondering, is anybody, are you all thinking differently about who your panelists can be now that we're in this virtual space? I mean, are you looking at, you no longer have to get somebody who can drive over, right? You might be able to get somebody from across the state or even across the country. Anybody thinking about speakers differently?
We definitely are. We're drawing on our alumni now across the country to be able to highlight some of the interest areas on our panel that we don't have locally. And then we shifted our panel so that it's not just about the different kinds of things people do as family physicians, but it's got a tie-in so that it's entitled The Breadth of Practice, but the Depth of Values, meaning that all the panelists are asked to talk about the sort of core values of the work they do so that students can see that that's thematic no matter what people are doing in terms of practice focus.
I love that. One of the other ideas that we've heard recently is, and Alex, thank you for sharing the concept about how you're leveraging the funding, because I think that's amazing to think about how, giving back with that funding and getting students involved in that social issue. One of the other things we've heard about using funding differently, if you're not using it for catering, is using it for speakers. So maybe, getting some speakers with some sort of clout that might require a little bit of dollars. But leveraging your alumni network, that's a great idea too. You might not need to spend your money there, but you might be able to get students some broader exposure. Any other ideas for what you're going to do with your first years coming in, how you're going to engage those first year students?
One more thing I forgot to mention is that we've actually set up a mentorship program between older students and family medicine residents for incoming first years to try to help them navigate all the strangeness of going to school online, but also how to sort of start their paths towards family medicine. And we send out a survey with questions about academic interests and hobbies and everything like that to try to match people with a lot of overlapping interests.
And that's a new program this year, or are you adapting it to the needs this year?
We've adapted it. Normally we would do this sort of after the first years had been established for several months, but we've moved it up to help students since they don't have a lot of opportunities to make social connections since we're completely online. So normally we would do this in like September, October. We've actually already started sending out the surveys now, even though the first years haven't arrived.
I'm curious, one of the things that we saw in the Program of Excellence Award applications which reflect what you all were working on earlier this spring in the final semester of the last academic year, which was really just as the pandemic was starting. I'm curious if anyone is thinking about programming related to family medicine's role in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. I personally have heard completely mixed perspectives on this. I've heard students say, don't talk to me anymore about COVID. It's all I've been hearing about. And I've also heard students say, wow, I would really like to hear more about what a family doc's been doing. It would be really, interesting to us to hear stories about family docs, who are in New York or in another place where, they're another hot spot and how they addressed it. Is anyone thinking about any programming actually related to the clinical topic of COVID-19 and the pandemic?
Hey, this is Weston Eldridge. I'm the FMIG president at University of Mississippi Medical Center. So we're a pretty rural state, and a lot of rural hospitals have been hit kind of hard in our state. And we're actually having a virtual meeting Saturday, and I'm planning on reaching out to a lot of the rural doctors, the hospitalists that we have, and we're going to try to hopefully get a panel if we can get them all online at the same time and see how they've been approaching it. So.
Great. I think about first years, your students who've been a medical student since this pandemic started may or may not have COVID-19 fatigue, but it's possible that your first year medical student coming in would be really interested to learn. And there are some family docs just who are inspiring in the way that they've been involved in this pandemic. So I would encourage you all to, and let us know if we can help. If you think you want to put together some programming and we can help, let us know. But if you look at the AAFP's website, we've been doing weekly live CME sessions with family docs talking about concepts from how they've designed their practices in the pandemic to the health disparities that have been highlighted in this pandemic and addressing those and all sorts of topics, so you can see their stories. You could leverage some of their stories and or potentially, again, in this virtual environment, invite some of them to speak to your groups. And I can't tell you if they're all available, but they're only a Zoom button away anymore. So I would encourage you to think about that a little bit. Even residency programs in New York, whether, not only the faculty, but the residents would have been involved. In other places, I know, in hot spots. One question I also wanted to ask, and this is actually could cross all class years, but have any of you either tried or are you working on collaborating with other medical schools or other family medicine interest groups in your state or region, thinking about inviting students beyond your institutions, since that's more accessible?
Ashley, this is David Bramm in Huntsville. Hey, how you doing? We in the University of Alabama Birmingham School of Medicine at our Huntsville Regional Campus have an osteopathic school down at Auburn, Alabama, and Huntsville is one of the clinical sites for their students. So our FMIG students have reached out to them on a couple of things. One community service event for the homeless people, and then one was a dinner. Now, this all got started last year, and they had high hopes of what they were going to do in the fall. Like all of us, we've had to modify that contact with COVID-19, but we hope to link up with them again with the same sort of programs that everyone's talked about, speakers, et cetera, through a virtual format.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. I think a lot of groups have events like that they're trying to figure out how to adapt. Let's talk a little bit about your second-year students. So your students who may or may not be starting clinicals during this year. I know some schools are on accelerated rotations, but are definitely, may or may not have already been involved in your interest groups, or maybe thinking about leadership transitions. What are you all thinking about planning or exploring for meeting the needs of your second-year medical students? Hannah, it looks like you might have an idea. Jump in.
I was going to say, before we move on to second years, North Carolina, Tracy Hazlett's on here, and she was helping us like spearhead the collaboration idea we were just talking about, if she wants to throw out how that came about and how it's going.
Yeah, I'll just say quickly that we typically try to bring all of our state's FMIG leaders together twice a year in person. That's historically something we've done with an annual spring event and our annual meeting in the winter. And it's always a challenge with schedules and getting students to travel. So I guess one of the silver linings of all of this has been that, now with the new discovery of Zoom and being able to reach everybody much easier, we've had individual FMIG leader meetings I've had with each medical school, but next week we actually have a statewide one scheduled to kind of talk about some of this exact stuff. But one of the things that came out of those individual meetings was a desire to collaborate. So we've had one where we had a virtual culinary topic where family physicians led a discussion and creation of recipes with students on clinical rotations, so some fast foods on the go, how can you stay healthy when you're exhausted, and that kind of stuff. And we opened that up to all the schools, and we did have other students participate. So we're planning and moving forward to have each school take responsibility for planning one virtual event each month that is open to everybody. And then more as desired, but that was kind of the starting point. And so we'll map that out. So maybe it'll be a little less planning for each specific FMIG group, but also invite people in that might not otherwise join on campus for things. So we're going to give that a shot and see how it goes.
Thanks, Tracy. I love that idea. What I love about that idea, especially, is that so the students were the ones who, were interested in this collaboration, and we've been talking about this with some student groups, and other states students have expressed the same kind of passion and drive to connect with their other peers at other institutions across the state. And I also love that you all have a goal. Like, each school will just pick one of their events and have that be open to all the medical schools in their state, all the family medicine interest groups in their state. And if you would like to do something like that, I'd encourage you to contact your state chapter of the American Academy of Family Physicians and see if they can help you, and or contact us, people in Hannah and Brynn's roles, and there are 3 more regional coordinators. That's their job, is to help you all connect, so they can help you connect with other, or your student leaders connect with other family medicine interest group leaders in the state and potentially work on some of those collaborative events. Thanks for that idea. Did anybody have anything specifically that they're thinking about doing for your second year students?
At our school, the second years, we have a scholarly project that we do from years 2 through 4. And at this point, second years have to start thinking about what they want to do and choosing a research mentor. So we've been gathering older students who have gone through that process, and also gathering attendings and other physicians who would be interested in serving as research mentors, which we found particularly important for family med, since there's sort of a myth that family med people don't do research. So that's been a really fun process, and it's also been something that we could do completely virtually. Obviously lots of emails, but we've basically created a spreadsheet of people that are comfortable having students cold email them to do research together.
That's a really fantastic idea. I love the idea I heard earlier too about the kind of the peer mentorship program. And I think you could think about your second years here too, especially the ones, you know, for those of you with an accelerated curriculum where they might be even getting out into clinicals at some point later on in the second year, getting them ready for that, and potentially for your third years too, having your, you know, senior students give them advice. Does anyone do anything? I heard someone earlier mention trying to support students through all of this virtual learning. I would be curious what type of tips, what's the content of that? What types of advice do you pass along for students about how to kind of sustain their energy in this virtual environment for learning, especially in the preclinical years? Okay, sounds like we need to think about that one a little bit more. So then what about for your third year students? Let's talk a little bit about their unique needs. They're getting ready to either have started or getting ready to start clinical rotations. Some of their rotations are happening virtually. From what we hear, some of the rotations are a little bit disconnected from the evaluation and testing for those rotations. So they're kind of doing both things. What are you all thinking about, or how are you planning for meeting the needs of your third year students? And Hannah actually just shared an idea in the chat. And Hannah, while people are thinking about those third year students, will you tell us a little bit about this idea? Because I think it's a great one for the preclinical students.
Yeah, so Brody has a sim lab, and something that we were doing before COVID, we did a circumcision lab with our family medicine residents, and it had a great turnout and everyone loved it. And they were kind of sad that their workshops and skills labs were going to have to be put on hold since we aren't able to gather in the sim lab like we would before. So we were brainstorming ways to invite the first and second years to continue to do the skills labs, but virtually from home. So suture kits and the circumcision for the first years that didn't do it are two things we could think of that were relatively low cost that you could put together in a kit and give out. Like I said, you can't really give pig's feet and ultrasound to everyone, so it might not be the same experience that it would have been a year ago, but it's better than nothing.
Hannah, that's such a great idea. And here in Alabama, I don't know if we couldn't find pig's feet to send home with everyone. So that's a really great idea. So thank you for bringing that up. Thanks.
Yeah, send home some punch biopsy kits with those pig feet.
Exactly, yeah.
Ashley, we have a summer intern group as part of our rural medicine program, and we didn't try and mail pig's feet, but we did mail the instruments along with suture material and a return mailer, and the students simply bought bananas. Then I used my camera to turn it down so you could watch my hands and sort of make a video to teach them how to sew, and it was very successful, I thought. And they did mail back all the instruments too. I told them they didn't want to show academic dishonesty while they're applying to medical school.
There's some great ideas. A couple others that we've heard are, so the education that you're doing for your residents, particularly, a lot of you might be involved in the intern orientation. Your residents are doing BLSO. They may be doing focus training, different clinical topics for the residents. If you can expand those and invite students, particularly if it's virtual and there's no incremental cost or low incremental cost, just giving students a chance to get some of the clinical education early. If you all remember, some of you are medical students on this call, and if you remember when you were a medical student, any chance to learn it a little bit before everyone else, get your skills honed a little bit before you get out on the wards you're going to take. So that's the attraction of those clinical skills workshops and other clinical topics. And in some cases, you're already doing it, and it's just a matter of potentially inviting the students.
There are also, Ashley, and you'll have to kind of fill us in on the exact name of them, but there are little flash drives that are offered by AAFP and are kind of the intro to the clerkship. And we were able to get several of those and get them to our third-year students. We're a regional campus, so we've got third and fourth-year students here. And those are going to be, immensely helpful to them during those third-year clerkship rotations. And so if you could maybe tell us a little bit more about those, I think if folks were interested, having access to those would really give them a good resource, and go ahead and kind of start the process of tying them into reading journals for learning as well during this time. Absolutely, and I'll type into the chat. If you want flash drives, you email my colleague Mary Harworth. So the flash drives are a project we started a long time ago, actually, when flash drives were newer and more exciting. Now, some of our devices don't even have them, but essentially it's something with a little bit of a thud factor. You can put it in a, tangible, you can put it in the hands of a student. When they open up the flash drive, it gives them a link that's a portal into American Family Physician journal topics organized by clinical topic. And so they can really quickly see this big list of the breadth of family medicine. Family medicine does adolescent medicine, everything that's on the list. And then they can click in to learn more. It's really great to supplement what they're getting in their clinical education. Something they saw in the clinic that day, they can go into this and dive in deeper on that topic. But it also, even for students who aren't on the rotation yet, can, again, kind of show them the breadth of family medicine and let them also dig in more to those topics in the journal. It also has a link to join the AAFP, get access to our board review questions, come to national conference, has our Strolling Through the Match resource, really just a few targeted resources that are particularly applicable to students when they are on their family medicine rotation. And then it's a flash drive, so you can load whatever else you want on there. If you want to put, a lot of programs will put their syllabus on the flash drive and kind of give it an orientation to the clerkship, but you could put FMIG materials, you can really put anything else on there that you want. And whether or not you want our flash drives, you could also take the concept, and create Google folders and things, again, in this virtual time that you're putting together resources for students and sharing to help them kind of get that picture of family medicine. Any other ideas for second or third year students?
I know something that we did on our family medicine clerkship that some people liked and some people didn't. When COVID started hitting, we started doing reflection journals. And I think especially for third years as they go out in the clinics, just kind of reflecting, maybe even like a couple times a week, something that they saw or patient interactions that they had, and kind of putting that all together, and each person taking, something from their journal and sharing them all together into a booklet or just some quotes that you can use can be helpful. I think it's one of those for those who like journaling. It seems tedious at the time, but it's really great to have. I've looked back on mine, and it's been good to have that reflection during all this.
I'm really glad you brought that up, Brynn. I think that, a lot of our students could use even more than usual help and support on wellness and all of those things. Residents too actually need a lot of that support right now. So thanks for bringing up that idea. Let's talk a little bit about your fourth year students getting ready to match. What are you all doing? What are you all doing to help them? What are you thinking about?
So we actually had a pretty unique opportunity about a month and a half ago for our FMIG group on campus at the University of Mississippi. Typically, it's been a pretty big challenge for us to get residents to attend our meetings because often we have nighttime meetings. Going virtual has given us the opportunity to actually have weekend meetings. So more students are able to hop on to our WebEx and Zoom meetings. And we were able to get a program director of the residency program at UMC as well as a few of our residents, to all get into our WebEx meeting, and we discussed what this upcoming match season will look like being virtual. And the residents fielded a lot of questions, and we talked about a lot of the hurdles that are here now, that probably a lot of us have been discussing with administrators at our med schools and deans, because we're all going to be interviewing virtually. But it was a really unique opportunity to have that specifically from the family medicine perspective. And we gave the M3s an opportunity to join in to that meeting as well. And to my knowledge, we had never really had a meeting like that in our institution before. So hopefully moving forward, we'll be able to have more doors open to where we'll have more residents being able to join, because they rotate all over the state.
Thanks. Kind of picking up on that idea, one of the Program of Excellence Award applications changed last spring. What would have been normally they're strolling through the match panel to a zooming through the match talk. And I thought that was a really creative, fun idea some of you might want to borrow. But I think we know so much more today than we knew 2 months ago about what the virtual match is going to look like. And we will know more in 2 days, in 2 weeks, and we'll continue to know more as the season evolves. And so having regular kind of touch points on how the match season is unrolling, and even giving your family medicine interested students just a chance to continue to connect with each other as the match season approaches could be really valuable. So you may set up a few events for those students looking to match into family medicine. They can share how they're navigating, what they're doing. You can invite residency programs to share not only recruitment, but you know, up until up until ERAS opens, your residency programs technically are not recruiting yet. So they can come and do educational things for you, they can help you educate your students on the match process as they figure it out between now and October, and they're not kind of at risk for match violations in terms of recruiting. So I would encourage you to tap into your local residency programs and ask for their help in that. And also, you know, facilitating a dialogue between the students and the residency programs can help the residency programs design their virtual match process, because they're figuring this out. They've never done this before. And it's going to be really important that they are able to meet student needs in terms of how students want to go through the match, or what they want to get out of a virtual interview. So it could be a really great exchange. What other ideas do you all have to support your fourth year students?
This is Andrea Anderson. I'm the FMIG advisor at GW. I'm sorry I'm not on my camera. I just came in from working out, so not camera ready. But we had a Zoom meeting for applying fourth years. And I was planning just to go through all of the AAFP resources, like strolling through the match, and here's how you look up programs, et cetera. GW is a target school, so we don't have a residency or a department, but we have a good amount of students interested. But midway through, I realized, you know, probably the best spokesman or spokespersons would be the recent graduates. So I just impromptu texted a bunch of recent grads, and a couple of them jumped on the call from all around the country, really. And it was really great that they could share more like hands-on stuff. You know, like I could definitely tell the students general things, but of course I matched a long time ago. So the more recent graduates had, you know, really salient pieces of advice. So I second what everybody's been saying, is to really leverage the input of the recent grads and the residents to really help the students, you know, see that there's a world on the other side.
I actually have a follow-up question to that. just because this is something that Hannah and I have talked about doing, and I would love to offer this, to kind of coordinate this with our residency programs and our medical schools. So I guess from whether you're a clinician at an academic center or you're a student, my question is, does it seem like it's better to do this by school? So for example, do this with the Brody School of Medicine and invite residency programs in, because they might either be more comfortable or have more specific information to their school? Or is it better to have the more diverse representation and invite all medical schools and all residency programs that want to participate at once? Does that matter?
Hi, Tracy. Michelle Chadek from PNWU, and I also work for the University of Washington Family Medicine Residency Network. And I'm just adding to your conversation. We're doing a couple of residency fairs. And so I might, if we have a follow-up meeting, I might be able to answer your question after those. But I think in general, just trying to get the students exposure to these kind of regional residency programs and giving them an opportunity on different platforms to interact with them virtually. I think we're doing one with multiple schools, and then I'm doing a specific one just for PNWU. So I'm kind of hitting both angles there. And there are different times. So if the students are busy or in rotations or have life events, they'll be able to participate in the next one as well. So.
Yeah, some background on that conversation with me and Tracy. Our advisor for Brody for matching into residency for all specialties, not just family, is stepping down. So I was frantically reaching out saying I would love advice from other students or other residents on like what was helpful for them since our person was stepping down. So the way I looked at it is it would be good to get advice from both angles, from other students, other schools, and residents. So any thoughts?
I would echo that the M4 panels are really helpful. Our school does it in March. We've talked about doing it earlier just so that people kind of know. I think what happens at our school is we've already planned our 4th year, and then we don't know when we're planning how, when we should be doing sub-Is, when we should be doing different parts of the application process. So it just kind of depends on your school. I do think they're really helpful. Every July, we've always done strolling through the match. We're still planning to do that this year, but with it being virtual, we actually decided to utilize the whole being online thing. And we're actually having one of the speakers who's speaking at national conference about virtual matching come and talk to our school and kind of do a Q&A type of thing. My school, we're a smaller campus. It's been really helpful though. We have a group me of everybody who's going to be matching into family medicine. So it's been easy for someone to just send a message if they hear a new update that's happened, just so that everyone's in the loop about it. Yeah, those are things that have really helped with us. We have individual dinners with the residency. We have previously, I think we'll still continue that. Sometimes we have a dinner or two during primary care week, just because we try to do an event every day of that week. And so sometimes it's nice to have something where you're just sitting back and watching, but you're still giving exposure to family medicine and to different residencies.
Hi, my name is Jeremy. I'm a second-year med student at UT Southwestern in Dallas. And earlier this month, our family medicine, she's a coordinator in our department, invited 6 local programs, both community and academic. The program directors to meet with our MS4s in a Zoom meeting. And it was really helpful to kind of just touch base, because there are a lot of things that the program directors didn't realize, like step 2 was having to be delayed multiple times for the MS4s, and they were like recommending that they take it early, and the MS4s are like, I tried, but like couldn't. And it was really helpful to just ask the program directors just what to expect with the virtual interviews. And honestly, no one really knows, but it was just so good to get on the same page with, and it was a really intimate environment. There were, I didn't realize how many programs there were in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but we were able to get 6 of them to come and with our 4th years. And I thought that was really helpful for our 4th year students and the program directors, maybe.
Thanks for that, Jeremy. Thanks for those ideas. I think, you can, so connecting with residency programs, and I'm going to transition now to some of the questions that were in the chat. So hopefully we get to all the topics that people had hoped for in the session. And one of the questions is about how do we work with residency programs? And I think you have, some definite options. So one thing I saw with actually with Dr. Bramm in Alabama that they did recently is their state chapter organized a student event and brought all of the residency programs in their state, and actually just let all the residency programs do a recruitment spiel. So each residency program got like 10 minutes. Students were on the call for, an hour and a half or so to get through all the residency programs. And they got to hear from each program about what training looks like there, and it gave programs just a recruitment platform. I think another way you can leverage programs is rather than just the recruitment spiel, is ask programs to come and do something topical in family medicine. Come talk about addressing health disparities. Come talk about COVID. Come talk about something that you do as a family physician in practice, either a clinical topic or leadership and advocacy in family medicine, something that's a topic that your FMIG might have hosted a lunch lecture on in a normal year, but invite a residency program to come teach it. And then students are getting to come learn about a topic they might care about. They're getting to see family physicians. There's kind of just that embedded exposure rather than being like over recruitment. And that might really help you engage more students than just your 4th year students too. So, think about some potential opportunities like that to leverage the residency programs. Another thing we saw actually happen at a statewide level in Ohio was they took what used to be a summer externship program and turned it into a totally virtual summer externship program. So students got paired with a family doc, which normally they would get paired to go do shadowing. Somebody asked in the chat about, what is the status of shadowing and preceptorships? It's harder right now. In some cases, it's not possible to go do a shadowing experience. And in some cases, preceptorships are obviously happening virtually, and some are going back into the clinic too. But it's definitely harder right now. But in this program, students still got paired with a family doc, and they weren't expected to go shadow in their clinic, but the family doc could, if they could find a way, involve them in telehealth delivery. And there's some logistics that go into that. But even if they couldn't get them completely embedded into a clinical setting, they could meet with them. They could have a virtual coffee. They could, just have a few kind of mentoring conversations, talk about what they do. It's a really great program for 1st year students. And then in the program, they did wraparound education, so some regular webinars throughout the summer. And in doing that, they got some education out, but they also created like a little community of students. These students saw each other on these regular webinars every week, or not every week, they were probably monthly, but they had that chance to kind of build a connection with each other. And so that was a lot of fun. And I think that that's one thing to think about too, is just how can you still create some social connection for your students during this time? Can you all plan some virtual events that are, we're going to get together and play cards. We're going to get together and do trivia, or just something. I know people have Zoom fatigue, but sometimes getting on a Zoom call and then having it be kind of socially fulfilling can actually be, energizing for people and create those social bonds, especially for your 1st year students who aren't getting a chance to kind of come in together as a class. You can maybe help them create some of those social bonds. We also talked to a medical school recently that's planning, the FMIG leaders are planning their own sorry guys, my audio just died because I've been on lots of calls today. They're planning their own virtual conference for students. And so they're putting together all of the programming. And it's going to be kind of a leadership conference / professional development. And so that's something to think about too. FMIG be thinking about putting on a virtual conference of its own and or leveraging other virtual conferences that exist. Maybe some of the dollars that you would have put toward catering, think about putting toward virtual conferences. Obviously the AAFP National Conference, which is next week, we would love for you to get as many of your students there as possible because we've really put a ton of effort into shifting that programming to being most relevant to what students are going through right now. It's a great way for students to see energy and passion and breadth and variety and values in family medicine, as well as connect with students across the country. But if you create some more local kind of, virtual conference type events, it might help foster some of those local connections, local relationships that can deepen. So those are a couple ideas. Another one we saw in the Program of Excellence Awards that I wanted to share with you all, one of the schools actually did a social media campaign. Now they were working on this before COVID, but wow, isn't it great that they had a deep presence in the social media space just as everything went more virtual. Their campaign is on Instagram. It's called Humans of Family Medicine, like the Humans of New York. You should check it out. Just go on Instagram and search for that. And they highlight different family docs. And so it's pretty cool. So that might be something to think about. Do you have students that might want to lead an effort like that for some sort of special social media campaign or other kind of campaign in those spaces? One question I wanted to ask the group, and I have some thoughts on this as well, but I want to see what you all have. Within all of these virtual events, how are you keeping these engaging? What have you participated in that's been especially engaging, or what have you hosted, and how have you used kind of interactive elements? What best practices have you done or seen?
So we did one recently and kind of broke it up, and in the middle of it, did a scavenger hunt. So everyone was at home while they were doing the call. We didn't tell them what they were hunting for before, but just before we let them go, we told them they needed to find 4 things, one each that started with the letters F, M, I, and G. And it was really cute to see the things that, people brought back ice cubes and, and their pets with a name that started with either. And so that kind of broke it up a little bit, and, really was a fun way. And we could tell that after that for, at least the next, 10, 15 minutes, everyone was really engaged and kind of looking for the next fun activity. So I think just breaking it up in some kind of way would help with keeping engagement.
Actually, one thing we did in talking about the social determinants of health, one of the problems that Dr. Anderson and I deal with in Alabama is people who live in food deserts, either from lack of transportation or lack of funding or whatever. So I challenged my students virtually to take the amount of SNAP money available to a poor family in Alabama and come up with a menu to feed a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old and 2 adults for a month. And they had to go to the store and find staples, to find nourishing food, and to come up with recipes. And then, we hope that if the pandemic allows, we're going to get together and each of us bring our best recipes from that event. And so it really kept the students engaged, and they really enjoyed it. And it's very difficult to feed your family purely on SNAP, but it's absolutely possible. But, not all of our families are as insightful as our medical students are.
That's great. Has anybody done any creative use of breakout rooms or been a part of something that you think went really well, using some breakout rooms, small group discussions?
Well, actually, the program you talked about, where we had a virtual AAFP student meeting, we had breakout rooms for each of the program directors. So you could You can go to the Selma room or the Tuscaloosa or Mobile or whatever and have one-on-one with their program directors. And I think the students found that very effective.
Dr. Bramm, I definitely agree with that. And actually, a different component of the same conference, virtual conference, they broke out students with residents, so residents only, and so they mixed up the residents and they mixed up the students. So again, it wasn't a recruitment conversation, it was a sit with a family medicine resident conversation, and those residents just answered students' questions about the match process, about kind of their worries about a virtual match process. And the great thing was that family medicine residents seemed to think, on the whole, reflecting on their own match experience, that yeah, we could have done that virtually. The things that were really important to me about a program, I could have learned those virtually. It's not the size of the call room or what it actually is other elements about that program. And so I think the residents were really reassuring and really authentically reassuring to the students and helped them think through how do I research residencies? How do I figure out what I need to know? Well, in our last couple minutes here, what else is sitting with you all? Any other sparks, ideas, concepts that that you have that the group should know about?
We talked about, and going back to your the breakout rooms, just doing a in person, like a speed dating family medicine, which we realize now that breakout rooms would work nicely with. And you know, each FMIG could determine what those would be, but one that may be fitting for our campus, since we have so many fellowships there, is to have either a fellowship director or the fellow in each of those rooms, and then it allows you allows all students to kind of realize the breadth of family medicine and what fellowships are available. But the breakout rooms would work nicely for doing something like that also.
That's a great idea. What else? Anybody in our last minute here? Okay, well, I'll try to bring us together. I've taken some notes from this conversation, and we'll try to grab glean any great ideas that you all shared in the chat as well, and we'll put those together and send them back out through the online community so that we can kind of capture some of these ideas. But keep sharing ideas as you come up with them. Use our online community to connect with other FMIG advisors and other FMIG leaders. Tell your regional coordinators; they'll help get the word out. You all are figuring this out on your campus, so help us figure it out with you, or help us expand that to others with you. And then, like I said, I hope that you are all planning on being at the AAFP National Conference next week. If you have any questions, need any support to go to that conference, please let us know. But it's going to be well worth it. My co-hosts here, any final comments from you all? Anything I'm missing? Okay. Well, thank you all so much for spending some time with us today. Thank you for your dedication to your interest groups and to students at your school. And we'll talk to you again really soon. Have a great one.